is one of my favorite directors, J. Lee Thompson, is his Canadian-made film Happy Birthday to Me, starring Melissa Sue Anderson, Glenn Ford, Lawrence Dane, and a whole bunch of other people. Now, when the film came out during the time of the slasher films, and it was set up to be a slasher, and it is. It still qualifies completely as a slasher. But slashers and giallos are not the same, and the fact that this movie manages to completely walk the line between both of them actually is an achievement, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny because I never put it under the giallo microscope until you mentioned it, because everyone remembers the iconic shish kebab poster. It's just one of the great images of early 80s horror posters, and it came out during the slasher boom.
At the height of it,
and
where they were all being taken for granted.
And also all the major holidays, except Thanksgiving, were taken. So they were like, well, what about birthday? Like a calendar, it's not really a holiday horror, but it's like a calendar event horror of a birthday. And they really sell it like you're going to go see Friday the 13th or one of these films. But it very much does, because it's got sort of the guessing game of who the killer is, but not like My Bloody Valentine or The Prowler.
No. Like a giallo.
Like a giallo. But then
wait. Each character has one red herring scene where they get to act like a crazy person.
Yes, there's a red herring scene. Then they're killed.
And I've got a knife.
And the connection is that because John Saxon starred in Tenebrae, and don't do too much. John Saxton is one of the writers. I don't know if that counts as a giallo connection. We're making it though. But there is the great thing of...
When you've had as much ice cream cake as I've had, it is a connection.
It is a connection. But there's the great thing of like the people that look up and see the killer go, oh, it's you.
Oh, one of my favorite cliches in movies, when they don't show who the killer is, just their lower torso and their shoes walking in there, and that they're coming in as the killer, and they're like, oh wow, it's you! Great to see you. Hey, what's with that knife?
There's like 15. Oh, it's you. Also, because
the great John Saxton dialogue.
Great song. Oh, it's you. Yeah, but because there's a whole bunch of kids that are at a high school, even though they look like they're 27. And they all look like they go to college. It's this private school. And you just know there's going to be a high body count. The weird thing is it's not like got the Friday the 13th kind of sex. It's not like a body horror film. But there's a lot of couple swapping. Like everyone keeps switching partners.
Okay, before we get into
it is the 80s. It's 1981.
No, but that's a good point. And I want to bring it up when it has more of a context. So let me read the back of the box, okay? Welcome to upscale Crawford Academy, where everybody, especially new student Ginny, Melissa Sue Anderson of Little House on the Prairie, wants to be part of the school's most popular clique, the Crawford Top 10. But now, somebody has begun butchering the group's members. Could a deadly accident from Ginny's past be connected to the brutal killings? And as her 18th birthday approaches, will Ginny be the guest of honor at the most horrific party of all? Matt Craven from Disturbia, Lawrence Dane of Scanners, and Hollywood legend Glenn Ford, The Blackboard Jungle, 3:10 to Yuma, co-star in this twisted slasher shocker from Oscar-nominated director J. Lee Thompson in 1961's The Guns of Navarone, that features, as its infamous poster promised, 6 of the most bizarre murders you will ever see. RCA Columbia Home Video. We took this out of the H in the horror section.
Well, what I love about Happy Birthday to Me, at first it's a longish movie. Runs about an hour, 50 minutes. So your basic slashers kind of clock in around 90 or 100. So they really spend a lot of time going into Melissa Sue Anderson's backstory, and there's this very disturbing brain surgery scene. There's kind of flashbacks
and accident scene,
and accidents with a mother, and J. Lee Thompson, who we all love. I mean, from the Death Wish, there's so many films, but the movies just move. They just start off. There's no fat. They just everyone's a suspect. Everything's a red herring. It feels like Torso or one of the more kind of college set giallo films. But what's great about it, without giving anything away or getting to it, is the sort of resolution. It does follow giallo. You're like, is it a slasher film? It's a giallo. And then the ending is so batshit crazy. You're like, oh, it's a giallo.
Yeah. The whole film qualifies as a giallo, but could also be called a slasher simultaneously. But the fact that the past trauma backstory is so ridiculously crazy, that's what officially... puts it in the term of a giallo. And we've already had nothing but batshit crazy explanations of why the killer has killed on this quadruple feature that we had. This is still the craziest one.
This is as crazy as Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
Like when suddenly the reveal happens, you're like, what?
Well, Roger, what do you think of Happy Birthday to Me?
Well, I think J. Lee Thompson squeezes in all of his particular perversions into this one.
Well, he does, but that's, again, you're saying that as a compliment.
No, I say that as a compliment. I say that as like, as a guy who is, in many ways a kind of studio journeyman filmmaker, a guy who, comes in and takes a job and delivers. And I think this is like his only quote unquote slasher film.
Well,
giallo.
Look, he made a mark for himself, like doing thrillers. He was his movie the Yellow Balloon.
Yeah, for sure. The Yellow
Tiger
Balloon
Bay.
is amazing.
You've seen the Yellow Balloon?
Oh yeah, I have it on DVD.
Oh, it's terrific.
I have a foreign version of it on DVD.
His idea at some point was he wanted to be, he would have been happy, if I could be like a second tier Hitchcock, and just doing those kind of thrillers. He got waylaid. Well, all right, by Guns of the Navarone.
He becomes an auteur because of his consistency with squeezing in his particular.
Well, I agree with you. I think one of the things that makes J. Lee Thompson an auteur is he's one of cinema's lovable degenerates.
Yes.
The fact that he finds really questionable relationships and really questionable sexuality, and the fact that he seems to be turned on by him and then presents them in a way that's not condemnation against them, and is actually accepting of them, is an auteur trait that follows from movie to movie to movie to movie.
You can detect it. When you detect it in the film, you can say, oh my God, I am actually now watching a J. Lee Thompson film. He's showing us a peek into himself.
Yeah. In the case of a film I'm a big fan of, The Reincarnation of Peter Proud.
Exactly.
With the possible exception of Hotel New Hampshire, it's the only movie where there's a rooting interest in the incest to happen.
Yeah.
Now it's once removed because the guy is.
Yeah, technically, we're okay to do this because technically I'm a different person.
Yeah. There's this wonderful moment. But through the whole movie, Michael Sarrazin is saying, is like insisting, no, I think I'm this guy, Peter Proud. Then he ends up meeting his adult daughter, Jennifer O'Neill. And then at first he starts pushing her off when it looks like she wants to have an affair with him. Then he breaks down and has an affair with her, and he falls in love with her. And then he's talking to like the buddy who he's explaining the whole plot to through the whole film, so we understand what's going on. And he's been making this case that he is Peter Proud. And now he has to defend himself because he's fucking Peter Proud's daughter. And then finally it all comes down to, okay, look. She may have been my daughter in another life, but she's not my daughter in this life.
And that's almost J. Lee Thompson talking out loud.
Okay, and just forget about his last movie, which is Conjecture, where like he burns down the whole house just before he goes out. He douses himself in gasoline, douses the film in gasoline, douses Charles Bronson in gasoline, and just sets it all afire. All right, and it's a beautiful, glorious pyre. All right,
it sure is.
Okay. Now, where this falls into Happy Birthday to Me, well, a couple of areas, but the most significant area, and even on an episode that has Dressed to Kill on it, my favorite relationship between a psychiatrist and his patient in the history of cinema is Melissa Sue Anderson and her doctor, Dave, played by Glenn Ford.
Who she never calls anything other than Dave!
Yeah, okay, not Dr. Bennings or whatever. No, it's just Dave. And they're related.
Which in itself implies something. In J. Lee Land.
In J. Lee Land. Well, you don't even need to be in J. Lee Land to all of a sudden. I think even when the day the movie was released, I think people were like, what's kind of up between those two?
His daughter comes home and she kisses her dad right on the lips.
Yeah.
So even with the father-daughter relationship, there's a little something.
Well, she definitely has a thing for older men, that's for sure.
But they make him look sexy. He's not like a guy who's a Sigmund Freud. They're like, oh, it's Glenn Ford, but we're going to play this.
Well, I love Glenn Ford in this movie. I think he's terrific in this film.
But he's got his shirt unbuttoned. He's dressed like Bob Guccione.
No, you're 100% right. He's not this older man, fatherly authority figure. they're trying to make Glenn Ford look as handsome as Glenn Ford can look at this age. There is a sexy quality to Glenn Ford with his cool white shirts, his Italian cool white shirts with his cool black sweater on and everything.
Yeah, and his gold chains and the bare chest. He's a swinging shrink. But also they do this really clever device in the movie that she had this experimental brain procedure that part of her head was cut out, part of her brain. She had this traumatic accident. And she can't remember stuff, but her memory is starting to come back to her. So they really make you wonder, as these murders are happening, is she doing it as she's remembering things? Or is she going to solve the identity of the killer? Like, they're sort of leading you into thinking that she's going to solve the puzzle. But of course,
we can't
gets insane.
It's a movie playing with a zillion amount of red herrings. So it's your job to deduce who amongst this list of suspects is the killer. Then the film seemingly tells you who the killer is about midway through, and you're not prepared for the answer. And then it starts going on a whole other track than it's been going, only like a Jallo to jump the track a third time.
Yeah.
There's 2 jump the track moments in the movie. It's still fun, but there's like one batshit crazy thing in a Jallo. We're like, well, okay, all right, I guess that's what wrapped it up. But the deaths were so fun, I don't care. They do it twice in this, where you're just like, and I don't want to spoil it, but you almost have to like spoil it a little bit. But like in the killer's reveal, you think it's the killer's reveal, but it's not the killer's reveal. But you've been seeing it, and you're just like, wait, what? Huh?
How can this not?
How could no one have noticed? How could that actually have been practically pulled off and barely set up at any point in the movie and then executed? It's so outlandish and preposterous, but that's also what gives the movie its fucking charm.
It's entertaining. It's
entertaining as hell.
No, I don't buy it.
You don't get mad at it. You're just like, wow.
Oh, that's fucking bullshit. No, you don't say that.
No, it's fun. And that's what
it actually makes the movie.
And then the birthday party at the end with all the dead bodies and her, singing of Happy Birthday to Me. It's sort of the moment you've been waiting for. And they tell you on the poster that you'll see the murders, like Steve won't ride his bike anymore. Greg won't lift weights anymore. Like, the poster lists out the ways they're going to kill you. They're like, not only you see this many people die, this is how we're going to kill them. There's a guy with a shish kebab, and there's going to be a birthday party. And it really delivers on all of it.
Okay. And then at the top of the batshit crazy things is the mask technology that would put Mission Impossible to shame.
To me, that was the Roger Rabbit moment that I was speaking of. But wait, it's me, and then you pull off a mask.
But
I'm the villain.
But I kind of loved it. I really did.
Well, he does it really well. He does it in a really movie. It's a movie, and so it's as real as the shish kebab
actually
scene.
Does work. That whole birthday party does work.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. It's just, but yeah, the mask reveal, it just couldn't. And the way they sort of set it up with one character earlier, but they're like, his hobby is taxidermy, but he also makes fake human heads really well.
Like a makeup effects guy.
Because no one would have known what a makeup effects artist was in 1980 when they shot it. Yeah. So they're like, oh, taxidermy. Yeah. That's just, you do heads and stuff. So they've got
like a raccoon or something there to...
Yeah, and then there's the head, which is the actress sticking her head through the table. So you're like, so they pull the thing off, and you're like, they just found their friend's severed head. But then they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's a really good mask the guy made.
It's my hobby.
And he pulls the eyeball out. And you're like, okay, that's what that guy does.
Now, okay, but right up there in Jallo Land with the ridiculousness of the reveal of the killer and then the crazy story that is backed up by why they're doing all these murders is, again, straight out of an Italian movie. The hysterical past traumatic incident that put Melissa Sue Anderson in the hospital involving her mother. That whole scene is one of the best scenes that we saw. All right. It's so over the top. It seems like a weird, bad dubbing of one of those Italian crazy sequences.
That's what's so great about her, is that she's so over the top. And it's like, Mom, and it's like, I invited them all, and none of them showed up to the party, and they should. And she's like, we're going to bring you over to their party. And she's like, Mommy, don't baby. That no one shows up to her birthday party, that she's traumatized, or that she's sort of seemingly the new girl, but no one remembers her from back then.
But even here,
she had that terrible accident.
Actually, frankly, when the killer explains how it happened, you can go back and no, it's all happening because the killer indoctrinated her into the group. when you go backwards and think about it.
There's also some amazing things where it's like high school and this private school and this elite. They're so rich and they're so elite that they like own the town and they're like hanging out in a local bar and getting beers and putting mice in beers.
It's Canada. It's Canada. That's a Canadian joke.
I think, look, if she's turning 18, it's obviously a high school, but it's like an academy that runs like a college. Because to me, the kids just absolutely remind me of the kids from St. Elmo's Fire. Even in that tavern that they hang out with might as well be the St. Elmo's Fire tavern. But it's and the cars that they drive and the scarves that they wear.
But it's also some of the counselors from Meatballs. So it's like the counselors from Meatballs went back to college and they were in a horror movie.
By the way,
okay, that's just the Canadian aspect.
Well, no, actually, it's more than just the Canadian aspect. Andre Link and John Dunning, who produced this movie, produced Meatballs.
Yeah. No, it's
in fact, they made Meatballs in '79.
Yeah,
which was just
Matt Craven, who's the most recognizable of the Crawford 10, is the most recognizable guy other than Bill Murray in Meatballs.
I mean, you mentioned that this is a Canadian film, and this is like really a Canadian film because it's produced by these two guys, Andre Link and John Dunning, who early on, they were the ones who made Shivers with Cronenberg.
Yeah, those guys and Ivan Reitman and Jean-Claude Lord, are the Canadian guys that did horror genre movies, that New World.
And it was more than just that they were Canadian guys doing horror. They were Canadian guys who, for the first time, were taking government money for the arts and using them to make
slasher movies.
Shivers
or Rabid
and Rabid,
the clown murders,
and My Bloody Valentine the same year.
Yeah.
And so these guys were out there, and it was an outrage in Canada. They're like, "How dare you take public monies?" In fact, they were saying that about me as well on my film.
But then those were the movies that actually those were the movies that were making money. Yeah,
those are the movies that made money for telefilm, and these were the guys who really did it. I mean, these were almost more than any other.
It's a really enjoyable collection of these type of horror movie cliches that done in just the right spirit with a very like energetic cast in a quick, entertaining way that just keeps it up. It keeps the juggling balls flowing.
Well, they'll kill someone, and then as soon as they're dead, like one other character shows up. It's like, what did I miss? I was like, oh, I got delayed at the library. They're like to make them seem like a suspect. Right. They keep doing that, but the deaths are inventive. You have the motocross guy with that crazy motocross scene where they're going nuts. And then he gets like pulled into the bike with his crazy Harry Potter scarf that he wears like a 10-foot scarf while he's repairing his motorcycle.
It's a school scarf. I think everybody has to.
Yeah. It's like, okay, he's like destined to die like Isadora Duncan.
Yeah. And then, you have the other guy lifting the weights who, somehow can't lower them.
That's the best murder.
And then, although, the weight.
Probably just drop him behind you or.
He thinks she's going to help him out.
And he's like, help me. And then, the killer takes the plate.
It's not funny, man.
But it really works because, like Jackass,
quit messing around, man.
It might not have been a 25-pound weight.
Oh, it's you.
Even if that's a prop weight, they drop the plate on the guy's balls when he's wearing those thin 80s nylon jogging shorts.
Dr. J, one ball hanging out.
Exactly. That just looked like a painful.
And he's semi-flaccid, it looks like.
Who's the stunt guy who has to fucking take one for the team for that? But it just makes it's such a great kill.
Yeah.
They're fun. And then, of course, the shish kebab. When the shish kebab's coming because you've seen the poster.
Yeah, the fact that she's like, oh, let's like sit next to the fire and let me make you a little shish kebab.
Would you like a midnight snack? And then he comes back. He's like, here's some shish kebab. You're like, what?
I had these in the fridge.
Let me just roast up some shishki. And then he's like,
But we don't ask those questions because we've seen the poster.
and we don't care.
We're just waiting for the shish kebab to show up.
Get the shish kebab in the mouth and he dies.
And then it's like, that's like your favorite guy, all right, from the group.
Yeah. It's just enjoyable. And then the one guy, by the way, Rudy, who really looks like Rudy the Rabbit. For me, are they just naming every Canadian character Rudy in the late 70s?
It must be. Yeah.
When Rudy appears in the library and then they're digging the skull up. I mean, a lot of really great, kind of right up until the end. And then the father's coming home from the business trip and they got the rainstorm. It just looks like and feels like a classic horror movie. Basically, the great thing is it's because it's such a high body count, you don't have to wait long for a kill. If you're watching a movie, within 5 minutes or 7 minutes, someone's going to die.
Well, also, I would also say that there is a symbiotic connection to the whole last sequence and the whole reveal to Happy Birthday to Me to the very first Scream.
Oh, yeah.
The storyline of the very first Scream follows kind of closely the backstory line of Happy Birthday to Me.
Yeah, it does.
You know, even to the point of where they have that the father is like kind of tied up and been hidden for most of the movie. And they pretty much describe it in the same cockamamie way that the killer describes it in this.
I mean, just the way he stages like major action and catastrophes of that, of the car on the bridge as the bridge is going up. And they can't get out of the car, and it's like, or they're hitting the reverse, and because it's raining, the wheels are skidding, and then they fall in the water, and the mother has been pinned in the accident, and then she tells the daughter like she can't get out, and she's like, open the window and swim, and she's like, no, mom, no, and she's like, hold your breath and swim as hard as you can, and then she opens it, and the car floods, the mother dies, and she lets it's really, really.
But then her getting hit
tugboat.
That her getting hit by that tugboat in the head is so horrible. I cringed, and I mean I felt it in a bad way.
Yeah.
But then you have the whole thing at the beginning when the kids are playing chicken with the rising bridge and everything, and that's really exciting. And
yeah, and the guy does the jump and totals his car.
No, I like it. You were great. The one guy with the girls that don't want to go on the jump does the jump. You go, okay.
Trash your Firebird, douche.
I mean, he like plants it on the radiator, like, and then
he's like, fine.
Yeah,
and
I'm okay
and
with
then
it.
he's mad that the other guy didn't jump, that the other guy chickened out.
Yeah. Well,
not that he just trashed his Firebird.
I also really love Melissa Sue Anderson in this. And I love that she chose this to do.
Me too.
Like while shooting Little House on the Prairie. To me, that was like, for me, it was akin to Jessica Biel coming and doing Rules of Attraction on the heels of Seventh Heaven. It's like she's sitting there doing, with Michael Landon all day long, like reading Bible, doing Bible study in between scenes. And, I'm sure she was going fucking crazy. And she's like, go to Canada. J. Lee Thompson. I get to play this traumatized individual
in a teenager movie. All right, teenager movie. Modern day,
And she, you can tell, she is the one who wants to be there. She's excited to be there. And she's giving herself 100% to it, to this kind of the dementia of this character.
No, she's really, really good at it. She did actually a really fun TV movie around the same time. I don't know. I think it was just before maybe she did Happy Birthday to Me or just afterwards. A juvenile delinquent movie where she's like a young girl that's brought into a juvenile delinquent gang that's causing problems, directed by Jack Starrett, called The Survival of Dana. And Robert Carradine plays the leader of the bad kids.
Okay.
And she's the good girl that's indoctrinated into the gang.
You know what you said, it's why I cast Ryder Strong in Cabin Fever. He was coming off Boy Meets World for years, where he's like, oh, I get to fuck and kill and swear.
And you know that
smash.
he's going to give himself 100% to you.
And the kids that were fans of Melissa Sue Anderson, like fans of Ryder Strong, they're shocked because they're like, what the fuck? And that's what adds to the element of a horror movie. So any aspiring directors out there, if you're making a horror movie, get a Disney kid that's never done anything wrong and they'll go nuts.
Find some Musketeer if they still have those.
How wonderful that we found a connection with Happy Birthday to Me with one of your movies and one of your movies.
I love it. No, when I want to make Thanksgiving, and Happy Birthday to Me is like definitely up there in inspiration. I mean, the thing is with Giallo, I mean, obviously they are of a particular time, of a particular era, and people now try to sort of recreate that, which you can sort of never recapture, would make them great because it's not authentic. And I think what made the slasher movies great was the slasherness of like you had to outdo all the other movies. You had to get inventive with the deaths, and they were taking a hook and trying to kill a bunch of kids and make a cheap buck, and that's what made them what they are. In the same way you can't go back. And the Giallos were definitely the precursor. Parallel to that, there were in the 70s in Italy, there were the Commedia Sexy all'Italiana, these Italian sex comedies, which
really
become
that sounds really good.
It's one of his favorite genres.
When you say that, it sounds really sexy.
No, he can talk about Michelle Tarantini and
Massimo Tarantini, Nando Cicero, Viva la Foca, movie starring Bombolo, this kind of buffoonish older man, and beautiful young women, which were often Edwige Fenech and Barbara Boucher and Anna Maria Rizzoli and Laura Del Santo,
Laura Antonelli.
Laura Antonelli.
And if it's not that dude, it's Lando Brazuca.
Lando Brazuca, Alvaro Vitali was one, Lino Banfi. But those sort of became the template for American sex comedies. And what's interesting is that really Bob Clark is the one who sort of takes, Bay of Blood and puts it into Black Christmas.
Another Canadian.
Canadian starts the slasher. And then Bob Clark really takes a lot of the elements. It's almost like he mixes an Italian sex comedy with elements of like Last Picture Show, and and he creates Porky's, which is launches, the
Porky's
sex comedy
Boffo
craze.
B.O.
And then, it makes $181 million in 1981.
Confused everyone.
A masterpiece of a film. We watched beautiful 35 of it.
Yeah.
Really holds up. Great photography. Just an
Holds up
amazing.
great.
Well, Bob Clark is an
And then Bob
fantastic
Clark
director.
then pivots. Well, forget Turk 182, but he does pretend it doesn't exist. But then he does A Christmas Story, which kind of reinvents the Christmas movie. I mean, what a master! But it's interesting.
Yeah, it makes one of the best movies of all time.
But if you think about
Repeatable
movies.
movies.
What we love about Giallo films is that kind of going back is that the 50s American, the 60s American westerns, you weren't allowed to show blood, but of course in Italy they don't have that rule. So you have Sergio Corbucci and Leonardo creating on-screen violence. So suddenly. And then they put the electric guitar in there. So suddenly everything looks old-fashioned in the U.S. So then the Americans, you have Peckinpah, and everyone's trying to take from the Italians. And then, the thrillers and the crime films that it's interesting. Like Joe D'Amato called himself D'Amato because he wanted to sound like Martin Scorsese or Robert De Niro. Like there's such symbiosis in the 60s and 70s between Americans influencing Italians. And
you have basically in Italy, French Connection and Dirty Harry being the most influential movies ever made. But then their ripoffs of those, just like we were talking about how the ripoffs of Psycho create their own genre, become the Giallos. That becomes the Policiers. And becomes, which leads and with Godfather leads into the Mafia movies. The Fernando De Leo, Enzo G. Castarelli, crime action films of Italy out of the 70s, which are magnificent.
The Maurizio Merli films, the Poliziotas. No, it's really amazing. So if you love Giallo, but you go and you watch Once Upon a Time in the West, you're going to go, wait, Dario Argento, like the writers, and it was the Sergio Salvati, the deep director of photography. A lot of the writers of the spaghetti westerns, when that genre sort of went on the decline, everybody moved over into Giallo films. Yeah. So if you love spaghetti westerns, you'll start seeing a lot of the same names.
Fernando De Leo, the director I just mentioned, didn't direct a spaghetti western, but he wrote a lot of great ones. He wrote Navajo Joe. Yeah, not only that, he wrote the script that For a Few Dollars More is based on. They bought his script to get rid of him so they could take that and make that the second film.
So it's amazing. You could really see that these guys, that they took sort of the violence of Corbucci and they put it into spaghetti western, and then all of the spaghetti western violence moves into the Giallo films, and the Giallo films, then you can see Scorsese and De Palma and everyone in America going, whoa, what are these guys doing in Italy? Let's put that into Mean Streets. Let's put it in High Mom. And then all of a sudden it's really interesting, sort of the symbiosis of what the genre. So it's not just that we love these movies because they're fun and they have batshit crazy plot twists. As like film historians, you can see, oh my God, that was a spaghetti western that became that writer. Whoa, Lucio Fulci did that 4 of the Apocalypse, and he was a writer on this movie, and that influenced Scorsese and De Palma and these guys, and then that influenced Bob Clark, which influenced John Carpenter. So there's a real kind of back and forth relationship between American and Italian horror.